Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be looking at some of the events from February 8th, also why I didn't make a forecast that day, and a little bit into the 9th and what's going to be coming in the future. We're seeing a lot of severe weather for the United States over these past few days, so I'm going to be looking at all those days and also what I would have been forecasting on the 8th. Without further ado, let's get into it. So on February 8th, we had a system that moved right up here in Wisconsin and Illinois. And I actually didn't make a forecast because I was trying to go out there and chase it in case something happened. I didn't really get any good footage. I saw a little bit of hail, but otherwise, nothing too exciting to be completely honest. However, there was a pretty strong supercell that moved through Wisconsin and actually formed some pretty good damage. This is just a little sneak peek at some of the damage that was going on. You know, I believe it's currently rated EF2, and there was an EF3 indicator, but they're still surveying this damage and stuff. So for a different rating, that'll take a little while, but it could be an EF3 just based on some of this damage. We're seeing a lot of very destroyed homes. I think there's some shingles off a roof right here. So again, pretty good damage for something that was only a marginal risk. The SPC had outlined a little risk in. I'll draw it out here. Yeah, there's a little risk right in here, basically. Marginal risk, 2% tornado risk, 5% wind, 5% hail. And there was just this trough moving through that ended up, forming that twister. Pretty strong as well. There was also a brief tornado here in Illinois, I believe. I'll look back at the past products so you can kind of understand really what happened that day. So here's our surface map. Let's get a little closer. But you can see here, I'm going to move back to the contiguous United States. Here's our low pressure way up here. Let me draw that in ink. Low pressure right here. And it's basically, it was bringing in a lot of strong southerly flow. I mean, I was out there. There was, I think, 20-mile-an-hour winds just on the roads. It's quite dangerous, actually. But essentially what this did was brought in a lot of these warmer temperatures and higher dew points all the way up here into Wisconsin, coupled with a good amount of 3 cape as well. I can get a wrap model, I believe, here as well. The wrap will show us 3 cape, which is always a very useful product to see. And up here in northern Wisconsin, or southern Wisconsin, excuse me, pretty big plume of 3 cape, and that essentially took any rotations that formed at the surface, just stretched them into the vertical. That's how you get your tornadoes. So that's kind of what happened here. This is exactly where that supercell happened. Just kind of formed right here, moved through here, did a little bit, did some strong damage, and then weakened out. So the SPC did a pretty good job at highlighting that as well. There's also a little bit of severe weather yesterday. Let me go back to the NAM model now. Nothing, not nearly as organized as the last system was. This was basically based off, again, this, broad area of warmer temperatures and a very slight little surface low. I haven't looked at storm reports, actually. I'll do that right now. Yesterday's storm reports. Tornado risk, tornado in Kansas, land spout. But yeah, no, nothing really too crazy on that one. Just a few little scattered dots here and there. So now we're going to look at today's threat, tomorrow's threat, and Monday's threat, and I believe maybe Tuesday's threat. There's a whole system in the south here that's moving through. So what's going on is a low pressure forming right here in the desert southwest. As I said about El Nino, that tends to happen quite a bit. This is forming right here and moving into Saturday, which I've gone a little far ahead for. This is currently, right? So let me get to our current model. Here's our current model run, 12Z, which is essentially 6 a.m. Central Time. So here we have our low pressure. This is at 0Z, so that's 6 p.m. Central Time. This will be 9 p.m. This is where our trough is really starting to do some stuff. It doesn't look too crazy, right? It's very positively tilted. As you can see, this kind of axis is pointed way more to the east than it is to the west. Usually with severe weather, we want a negatively tilted trough that is, more based on flow kind of like this, where flow is more, the axis of tilt is more this direction. So I'm going to zoom in here as well, and I'm going to use the NAM-NST just because it's a higher definition. Move right here to the Southern Great Plains. Essentially, the way this is going to work is there's going to be the main risk today is hail. So we can see here in the SPC outlook, there's tornado threat all over here, pretty broad. It's just that supercells could form and maybe touch down a tornado or two. Some wind damage, but specifically a significant hatched region for hail down here in southern Texas. Essentially what's happening is we have just a semblance of this low pressure forming right here, right off the Rocky Mountains. We can see it kind of comes down, even at 20Z. It's not very well defined, and then right after it kind of ramps up. We have more winds out of the south and then out of the north. And it's kind of see the surface low developing there with the counterclockwise rotation. As that moves through in Texas, there's this little bit right here with some good cape, surface-based cape. See quite a bit of it right here as well. So yeah, right here, good amount of surface-based cape. 1,500 joules per kilogram, 1,800. Pretty good for this time of year. There's this little swath that'll be up here. That is where storms will form. Probably some good instability in the atmosphere, and just a few supercells that will end up bringing us, some hail, just because of so much instability that quickly it can really help make the hail embryos truly work. I'm taking a sounding here real quick as well, just to kind of understand the atmosphere these are moving into. But there will be some hail there for sure, and definitely a risk for severe hail, like the SPC is saying. Again, not really tornado risk, right? It's fairly, unidirectional. Shear is basically directional only, just moving that way. You could have a little bit of rotation in the lower levels just because of the vectors you take from the right mover. So you can kind of see, you can imagine this kind of rotating if you have this cell right here. But, supercell semblance, yes, but tornado semblance, not at all. So this could bring us to some hail. It's not the greatest sounding for sure, but there will be some hail possible today, later tonight. Now, what we're really looking at is the risk on Sunday and Monday. So right now, the day 2 outlook has a 5% region for tornadoes and, wind and hail. It's all hazards threat for Monday and most likely, Sunday and most likely Monday as well. So this is Sunday, this is Monday. I tripped over my words there a little bit. So if we look at the risk for Sunday, which right now we're at still on Saturday, this is 7 p.m. Saturday night, we can see here you have warmer temperatures along this corridor and colder temperatures on the other side of that line. That will be our open warm sector. And what's going on here is kind of a stationary front, right? So up here, there's a low pressure that's moving, but right here, this is just a line of not really changing, there's a very good temperature gradient. On one side, there's 60s, on one side, there's 50s. And that means we kind of have our stationary front draped right here. So in a way, this kind of acts like a warm front, just the fact that it's not moving north. It is not moving north. What's going on here, we have a low pressure that forms right over here, and then moves its way right here. So I'll redraw those. Here's our low pressure system. And it's kind of bringing a cold front, but really it's just a lot of warm, moist air that's bringing up from the Gulf of Mexico. And this is very similar to a lot of the events we've been talking about with El Nino. Again, just a lot of southerly or southeast events here. But you can tell this is our low pressure because of the way these wind barbs are moving out of the northeast, out of the west. I see the rotation. It's just all pointing toward the low pressure here. But yeah, as this moves through, we're gonna have possibilities for supercells as well. Take a sounding right there, and I can take one right over here to see what the environment's like. In the meantime, while we wait for these to go as well, you can see Cape. There's a very good plume of, Cape right here in the Louisiana corridor. And as this moves along the stationary front, even into Monday, there'll be that plume of Cape as well. Here's our first sounding. This one is from, I believe this is the Louisiana sounding as well. So yeah, rotation on the lower levels. A little weird looking, but rotation nonetheless. See that veering with height. As well as a good amount of Cape right in here that can we work with. That will bring us some instability, updrafts. That'll move up. And in this sounding, we can see here, pretty much uncapped environment as well. So that's our possibility for Louisiana. Mississippi, somewhat the same. Yeah, and there's a cap inversion here. But same thing here. Good wind dynamics, and if supercells can take advantage of that, they could be proved to be somewhat dangerous as well, as supercells are. And then into Monday, it's much the same. This NAM-NST doesn't go past that, but same thing here. And you can see this plume of Cape right here, starting in Alabama, just as the SPC says, starting here in Alabama. This is the main risk here as these supercells would mature, and most likely they'd have quite a bit to work with. So I'll take another sounding right here in Georgia where this will likely be. Look at the temperature again, we can see the same thing. Dew point might be easier to tell. Here's our warm sector right here, open warm sector. You can tell with this reds, that means that there will be most likely updrafts in that area. But then more of our cold front right here, draped here with a different, the 43 dew points here and a 64 on the other side, or a 56 here. That's kind of our cold front as it sweeps through and forces these storms to form. Look at our sounding here. I think Monday is more of the risk day. just because of better wind dynamics. But, these are very fast-moving supercells. I mean, 40, 50 knots, I mean, 60 knots, I believe. Very fast-moving supercells. They'll be very dangerous. Um, and we can see from the sounding, not a whole lot of recape, only 38 joules per kilogram. But again, as we get closer to that day, we could see what can happen with that. As well as there's, just moderate cape, but there is enough of it for things to really go. So again, we'll see what happens with it. I'll most likely be making another forecast when we get closer to it. But those are our main risks for these past few days. These few days here in the south, and it was kind of interesting earlier. They had that low pressure that moved in through the Midwest, and that's something I quite enjoyed to see myself. If I get a chance, I might be able to post some of the lightning shots I got. I don't think they're too impressive, but I'll have to look over that footage to see what I have. So as a little TLDR or a summary of this event, basically today hail, tomorrow tornadic, and all hazards risk that moves into Monday. So just low pressure will move through here and just basically just bring a whole quarter of severe weather for the southeast. Moving into next week as well, I wanted to look at something real quick, which is maybe a GFS model. This gives us nice temperature anomalies. So this basically tells us how warm it's going to be in the next few days. It's going to be warmer until, right around Valentine's Day, like I was saying in my last forecast. Then there's a little bit of cooler temperatures that could become plumed into the United States. We'll have to see. This low pressure that seems to be forming could dip down real quick based on a past product I saw as well. That is kind of what it showed. So warmer temperatures will be sticking around for quite a bit, though. And I think it's something the eastern United States will enjoy quite a bit here. So warm temperatures for the United States as well. So hopefully better weather, except for the southeast for the next few days. Otherwise, thank you for watching this forecast, and I'll see you next time.